Why live when you can survive? Minecraft, Terraria, and Valheim are among my favorite games of all time, so Enshrouded shouldn't have been any different. In fact, it wasn't. No survival game is complete without allowing players to decorate houses and organize storage containers. My mom would fucking love this game, but I could also fight my way through dungeons that required a modicum of actual skill from me. By putting a tabletop RPG spin on what's already out there, Enshrouded presents over 100 hours of opportunities to get medieval on skeletons, bandits, and dinosaurs, all while building a sick-ass house. Let's dive in. Navigation is almost always the simplest part of a game to grasp because understanding movement is so pivotal to making sense of a game's world and combat. But what's unique about Enshrouded is that it provides a lot of what you'd expect from more mainstream AAA titles, including grappling hooks, gliders, and somersaults. As you activate watchtowers and uncover safe areas within which to designate custom fast travel shrines, the immense world of Enshrouded eventually becomes much easier to access. This game certainly has its mind-numbingly long walks, but by spacing fast travel locations as regularly as possible, investing in stamina-preserving foods, or the endurance stat, and returning to the base with critical resources, you'll make the most of all the traveling you'll have to do without a mount. Enshrouded offers a comprehensive combat system with 3 distinct classes. As out of balance as one might expect an early access game to be, it's not terrible. The mage can't play fair, but doesn't need to. The warrior can play fair, but also needs to. The ranger needs to play unfair by hiding in the bushes to avoid being as powerful as a napkin. Everyone has advantages and shortcomings. I personally had a blast as a mage, and I think for most intents and purposes, mages are best. Comprehensive magic combat is so satisfying to have in the survival genre where such opportunities are few. The main caveat with regard to the class system is that the skill tree isn't as flexible as it looks. If you're a mage, you can't increase intelligence outside the mage tree. If you're a warrior, you can't increase strength outside the warrior tree. This inconvenience kills incentive to cross-contaminate, which I looked forward to doing at the beginning of the game. As the game graduates from early access, perhaps there will be more obvious opportunities to expand into multiple class sections of the tree. In terms of actual combat mechanics beyond the class system, there's a combination of free aim and Z-targeting. Most importantly, you can parry as any class, because all classes incorporate buckler-grade shields. If you're familiar with the survival genre, you recognize that many developers rely on complex procedural generation to build worlds. Because Enshrouded's world is static, the dungeons, crypts, cities, and bandit camps enjoy intentional design, brimming with secrets, locked gates, and treasure chests behind illusory walls. In particular, the instances made me feel like I was playing a tabletop RPG because, beyond a series of combat challenges, dungeons were atmospheric, creepy, interesting, and often puzzling. For the least prepared players, the more difficult instances are so in-depth as to take more than an hour easily. The most puzzling instances are the watchtowers, which exclude combat completely to compensate for how puzzling they are. Solve 3 or 4 puzzles to reach the fast travel shrine at the top of the tower. Say what you will about Assassin's Creed viewpoints and everything, but I admire the use of puzzles instead of an automatic climbing mechanic to scale these towers. The most important part of level design in Enshrouded, in spite of being 100 hours long in its current state, none of the content feels rushed. The development team took its time with all biomes and areas. These foggy areas are the titular shrouds. If you're in them, guess what? You're enshrouded. The premise is that Enshrouded is yet another post-apocalyptic game wherein fungus runs amok. These fungal areas are pivotal to gameplay because they're so rewarding in spite of how uncomfortable they are. Within the Shroud, visibility is limited, ambience is unnerving, fast travel is impossible, hostile creatures are nastier, and, worst of all, you have 5 to 10 minutes until you die automatically from spore inhalation. Without a doubt, the pressure's on. Why not avoid the Shroud entirely? Each of the Shroud roots and elixir wells, within which to find many Shroud roots, provides a full skill point upon killing a guardian or guardians and destroying the root. In addition to character levels, chopping Shroud roots helps you progress your character in a way that at least feels pretty quick. Even at the level cap, the Shroud never fully feels comfortable or knowable, but among my favorite aspects of this game is that braving the Shroud is the only way to make meaningful progress and to reach other safe areas with better resources. In many survival games, the next biome is usually the one that provides new assholes to players. In Enshrouded, not only is the next biome harder, but that biome's more unequivocally difficult part is also harder. The absolute triumph inherent to this is so worth the hardship. The average survival game doesn't capitalize on bosses, but Enshrouded does a good job of weaving such challenges into the larger survival experience. A single attempt costs a generous concoction of food, potions, and rest bonuses, not to mention enough caution and agility to remain out of a one-shot's way. If you lose, you either continue to dig into your supply of precious refined resources, or you fold and return after advancing a few character levels. A less important but equally fun mechanic that relates to bosses is taxidermy. Once you've killed them, you can put them on your wall in your house. There are also different levels of statues, in the sense that you can make plain, bronze, or iron ones, all of which provide progressively higher comfort to maximize your rest bonus. If you look at Terraria, Valheim, and Minecraft, bosses are mild challenges that grant better gear or materials upon a substantial investment of time, effort, and resources. With Enshrouded, the resource gamble feels a little more intense, and there's incentive to take out bosses multiple times to construct statues that yield greater rest bonuses. Also, remember that Enshrouded's combat is generally more complex than that of contemporaries, so skill can compensate for objective weakness at times. But don't push your luck, because bosses whose character levels exceed yours will reduce you to yogurt. If there's any genre that struggles with quality of life, it's survival. That's the fucking point. However, it can be frustrating to run out of everything, wait for crops to grow, and, everyone's favorite, losing all belongings upon death. Since Minecraft, other survival games have adjusted inventory loss in different ways. In Terraria, you keep everything, if memory serves. In Valheim, you lose everything in your inventory, but nothing ever despawns. Enshrouded is halfway between Valheim and Terraria. There are a generous number of items to keep upon death, and all lost items are recoverable at a permanent marker. As punishing as Enshrouded's uncharacteristically complex combat encounters can be, dying isn't as awful as it usually is in these types of games. Furthermore, Enshrouded's approach to buffs for avoiding death in the first place is as forgiving as the approach to death. Again, survival games have handled buffs differently. In Terraria, getting crunk on potions is a requirement for defeating bosses. In Valheim, food is a requirement for surviving basic encounters with the most innocuous enemies. And honestly, respect. This brutality is what makes these games fun. Whatever you think of how Enshrouded handles buffs, I find the design is uniquely suitable to the more fleshed out combat. In particular, food isn't a requirement every time you leave base, but it's not a supplement that you can avoid for all 100 hours of gameplay either. Food is at the perfect spot between necessary and supplemental. You can get by without potions and food a lot of the time, but both make a huge difference if you choose to invest, especially if you struggle with bosses. I've probably enjoyed building in Enshrouded almost as much as I've enjoyed building in Minecraft. Primarily, this is because you can build your house out of skeletons, but there are other reasons too. Not only is the building mechanic intuitive, but it also offers enough control for minute customization. Check out my Mulholland Drive ranch I built about the fast travel shrine. Very 70s, but very organized, like an Italian crime film. The key difference between Enshrouded and contemporaries is that there's a whole lot more to a sick-ass house than bragging rights and convenience. The more comfortable your home is, the more vigorous your rest bonus when you're adventuring out in the world. A nice home genuinely enhances your character and makes you more effective in terms of gameplay. Apart from putting resources toward and building an awesome estate at the end of the game, there's not much of a post-game. As it's an early access title, we Enshrouded fans have to wait. You can start a new world to replay some content, but that hasn't interested me much. I'd rather just wait for more areas to become available. I was on the fence about picking this one up. The main reason I went for Enshrouded is because of the countless hours I've poured into Valheim and Minecraft. To its credit, it's a must-play for any survival aficionado. The biggest caveat is that, though I played single player, I've heard that the multiplayer is almost entirely broken at the time of recording. A lot of this game seems like an attempt to repackage Breath of the Wild and rehash a lot of what's already out there, but I find it unique enough to be worth playing. I think it ultimately holds much promise as an especially combat-oriented survival game, and I look forward to the development team's further work. Don't enshroud yourself all the time, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.